Step 3 is preparing the procurement documentation. So this is the process of letting potential contractors know what it is that you're shopping for and what information you want from them in their tender bids. Is it 3 kilos of onions that must be French? Or do you need them to be pre-chopped or sliced? Do you want them to be fresh or frozen, or perhaps you need them to be delivered? All this information about the work to be done or the materials to be supplied needs to be documented so that you get exactly what you want from contractors and so that contractors sending you bids are pricing their work with the same information. That way no one has an unfair advantage. You also need to consider how you will send the documentation out and when you want the tenders back from interested contractors. Plus, the contractors need instructions on where to send their tenders to. In order to fully inform contractors about the work, the documentation you prepare can take many forms, and it might include specifications, bills of quantities, drawings, maps, site plans, calculations, organisation charts, and so on. Remember, each project is different, and this list might change. Lots of tenders are posted online, and the public can access them. If you're interested to see some tenders, have a look at the City of Melbourne website, the Victorian State Government website, and there's also databases of current tenders, such as the Estimate 1 website. Finally, in Step 3, you need to consider how you will compare the tenders. What evaluation criteria are important to you? Think about when you go shopping for something and there are two things similar, both would do the job, but they're not exactly the same. How do you compare them? Both of those aeroplanes will get you in the air, but one is a lot more comfortable than the other. In project management, we call this comparison tender evaluation. And you document the evaluation criteria now because the contractors need to know what you consider to be important. It will inform their bid to do your work. Not all evaluation criteria are equal, and so we often give them weightings dependent on where the client's priorities are. In this step, you need to identify the criteria, which might be something like cost, experience in similar work, size of the organisation, or the speed with which they can deliver the work, whether they have insurance or can implement a quality control. To recognise the different priorities, we give the criteria weightings which add up to 100%. So in this example, the client has decided that the builder of their new house will be evaluated on price, worth 40%, the builder's location, 15%, the builder's reputation, worth 25%, how soon the builder can start is 10%, and the ability of the client to nominate their friend Joe to do the painting might also be worth 10%. You'll see how we use these weightings later on in another step. Step 4 is implementing the procurement plan that you have prepared. If you have a comprehensive plan for the procurement process, then this step is simply a case of implementing that plan. So post out the information to potential contractors and sit back and wait. Sometimes you'll be asked lots of questions by contractors. If this happens, you must answer all the questions in a public forum so that all contractors get the same information. Again, this is to avoid any suggestion of giving one contractor an unfair advantage over others. Step 5. So the closing date arrives and you have 3 contractors that have sent you tenders for the work. The next step is to compare the tenders, and this involves comparing each tender against those evaluation criteria that you established in Step 3. It is important that tenders are compared objectively and by a number of people so that the final decision can be justified and is transparent. A good way to remain objective is to give each criteria that you have listed a score out of 5, where 1 is the lowest score and 5 is the highest. In this example, Company A scores 3 out of 5 for cost. Company B scores 1, which suggests that their cost was the highest, and Company C scores 5, which might be a result of their cost being the lowest. But do be careful attributing cause to these scores if you don't have the tenders in front of you. To take into account the weighting value of cost, we multiply the score by the weight. So company A ends up with a score of 120 for cost. The process is repeated for all criteria, and the sum of the multiplied scores is found at the bottom of the column. Notice there is also a yes-no criteria, which is for the presence of insurance. If a company isn't able to show you a certificate of insurance, which includes public liability, then regardless of their score, you would not want to give them any work. I'm going to leave the rest of the table blank, and I want you to pause the video while you have a go at working out the rest of the scores and decide which company you're going to award the work to. Then unpause the video and we'll see if you and I agree. So which company did you choose? I chose company A as it had the highest score of 385. As you can see, company B was effectively eliminated from the competition through their lack of insurance, and company C scored the lowest. Step 6. The final step is signing the contract. Your contract administrator and legal team have written a contract, and it will have been reviewed by the winning company, and perhaps amendments have been negotiated before it is signed. Despite the work that you've probably done before getting to this stage, in my experience, signing the contract is always a significant moment. However, if you've been diligent and thorough in the procurement processes, then this should also be an exciting moment. It's the start of a new professional relationship. So those are the steps in planning procurement. It gets you from nothing to knowing what you need done, when it needs to be done, and who is going to do it. During the implementation stage of the project, you'll be monitoring your contractors, giving them information about project progress and making sure they stick to the agreed contract. This is the subject of the later video.